Check, check.
All right. This is my favorite week every 3 months. This is the week before a new quarter gets started. To be honest, it's like a fresh start every 3 months for the business. If, the last couple months, if they went a little shitty, like that's totally fine because we've got a brand new quarter here, new life with everything that we're doing. And to be honest, I love planning out business. I'm a goddamn nerd when it comes to planning and executing and this stuff. Like it just gets me going. I love it. So I think it's so intoxicating for me because the stuff actually works. If you plan things out and you execute, it works. And I remember going back to 2021 when I was planning Ripple out and was just kind of following the plan I was setting and kind of listening to people what they were telling me to do. And I was shocked. I'm like, this stuff actually worked. I just did what I was supposed to do. And here we are. I hit these goals that I set that I thought were impossible. And again, if you make a plan and you use a simple framework to execute, you'll hit your quarterly plan. No questions asked. I have to, throw big credits for this podcast that I'm going to go over today. I'm going to be talking about quarterly planning, especially Q2, because we're getting into Q2 now. If you haven't planned your quarter out, or if you want to refine your quarterly plan, this is the podcast to be listening to. And before I dive into it, I've got to give big credits to the PT Biz team, Danny, Jared, Eve over there. When I had no idea how to plan a quarter before I joined the PT Biz mastermind group. And, when I was running Ripple, I was part of that mastermind. And every quarter we went over quarterly planning. And I took this very seriously because, again, I had no idea what I was doing. So I was just listening to what people told me what to do. And again, it just worked. And now, fast forward from 2021 to 2025, I've taken a few liberties myself on how to plan the quarter. And today that's what I'm going to go over with you. So, let's plan quarter two. Let's crush Q2. Q2 is always a fun quarter. I think it's one of the bigger quarters that you can have. So the first thing you need to do when you're planning out your quarter is you have to figure out what your one thing is. So there's one thing. No shiny object syndrome. What is the one thing that you want to accomplish this quarter to make it a successful quarter? And to be honest, this should be a financial goal. You really shouldn't get cute with this. At the end of the day, we're running businesses here. And if our goal isn't financial, then what are we doing? Like we're trying to make money with these businesses, right? Because money is what's going to give us the time and location freedom that we're looking for starting these business. So, if we're talking about Q2, based on what revenue you generated in Q1 and what your yearly goal is, you should be able to figure out what do you need to generate in top line revenue in order to make Q2 a successful quarter. And I think not only are we planning out what our top line revenue number is to hit our yearly goal, but you should also have a profit goal with that as well. Whether you want to talk about profit or you want to talk about what your owner's distribution is, one of those two things you should be planning out because, again, for us, top line revenue doesn't really matter if we're not generating any profit. And when you're figuring out this number, you need to think about what season of your business you're in as well. Because if you're in a big growth stage and you're trying to grow as fast as possible and you're trying to get yourself to 7 figures plus with your clinic, then your profit's going to be a little bit smaller and you have to be okay with that. When I was first running Ripple, we had a smaller profit number than what I would have liked to have. But I knew that I wanted to throw a bunch of money at advertising. I wanted to hire people. I wanted to pay people well. And, I was okay with a little bit less take home for me because at the end of the day, that's what I was trying to optimize for. And I was lucky enough. Obviously, I was able to sell the business and, my strategy there panned out. So it's okay to have a smaller profit number if you are in a growth stage. Otherwise, you want to figure out how are you optimizing for your profit, okay? So now that you have your one thing for the quarter, you need to figure out, okay, we've got our one thing, our top line revenue goal. What are the 3 strategies that we can then create and implement and execute on that are going to make our one thing happen? So you're going to map out these 3 initiatives and you're going to figure out what you'll do each month in order to hit these goals. And then, once you know what you're going to do this month, The idea is that you'll plan out each week. And then once you know what you need to do each week, you'll plan out each day. And once you know what you're going to do each day, you'll be able to plan out every hour, et cetera, et cetera. So you're really just working backwards of like, okay, here's the one goal that I have for this quarter. In order to hit that one goal, here's what I need to do. Here's the 3 strategies that I need to implement in order to hit these things. With these 3 strategies, here's what I need to do this month to execute on each one of these strategies. Here's what I need to do each week based on what I need to do each month, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it really is like, it's simple, right? But it's not easy, and you need to stick to this plan. And a lot of what I used to see, and I still see now, is people would create a plan for sure. They would have all the stuff mapped out, but they wouldn't like use the plan or use a planner and actually say like, okay, I know what I need to do this month. Here's what I'm going to execute on each week in order to make this happen. They would just kind of hope that these things would happen. And that is not a good strategy. So in recap here, right? Okay. So you have your one financial goal that you're planning for the quarter. Now we have to figure out what these strategies that we need to implement in order to hit that top line revenue goal. So you're going to have 3 of these strategies. 2 of the strategies have to be financial and they have to be leadership. These are non-negotiables. The other strategy, that third strategy, can be anything from marketing to cleaning up your systems to operational stuff, HR, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many other things obviously to do in the business. And this is where you need to think about like, what are you actually going to do to move the business forward? What do you like to do as well? Like, do you like doing operational work or do you like doing marketing? Whichever one of those things that you actually like doing, that's what you should lean into. And then you can kind of figure out like, okay, what do I need to hire out? For me, I hated ops. So it's like, I'm going to hire out ops. I'm going to figure out somebody else to do all of the operational side of things for me. So, okay. So now we've got this like idea, right? This theory. How do we actually execute on these things? So you have your top line revenue goal. Let's say our one thing for this quarter is we want to generate $100,000 for the quarter. Awesome. Cool. Okay. We have our plan. Now we need to figure out what are our 3 strategies that we need to do in order to hit this top line revenue goal. Okay. So the first strategy that we're going to do, this is going to be our financial one. All right. So basically what we're doing is we're working backwards here to create a game plan of what we need to do on the finance side of things to hit this 100K quarterly goal. So again, just work backwards, right? It's like if you want to do 100K this quarter, that means you need to do $34,000 this month, which means you need to do $8,500 a week, which means you need to do $1,700 a day. And if a patient is paying you $200 a session, that means you need to do 8.5 sessions a day. Seems pretty reasonable, right? You might look at that and say like, man, $34,000 this month. If you're a brand new business, maybe you just hired, that can seem like a pretty big number. But if you break it down and you say, all right, we just need to do 8.5 sessions a day. It's like, all right, cool. Like I'm already doing 4 or 5 myself. I just need another staff member to do 3 or 4 for me. And then we hit that. That seems pretty reasonable. So it's a good reframe for you. And it's an easier way to track this stuff as opposed to getting to the end of the month and being like, oh, fuck, we've only generated 25 grand worth of revenue this month. And then you're scrambling to make that extra 10K. Versus, each day you can say, hey, did we do about 9 sessions? If yes, great. If no, okay, like let's try to, let's be proactive here and try to get more people on the schedule. If you're a bit more advanced business owner and you're looking at this strategy number 1 on the finance side of things, I really like to look at it like this of like, okay, we have our top line revenue goal for the month. So in this case, we'll still use that 100K number. For bigger clinics, obviously this number is going to be bigger, but let's just use that. So we'd be looking to generate $34,000 this month. If you're an established business, you have people in continuity, you should have some sort of recurring revenue going as well. And you should have this tracked. You should know exactly what that number is. So let's say, for this, fake clinic that we're doing this planning for, let's say you have $10,000 of continuity. So that would mean, you're trying to generate 34 grand this month, but with all the people in continuity, $10,000 is going to be invoiced this month, irregardless of what happens. So what we now know is we can take that 34 grand, we can minus it by the 10K that we're already going to generate in continuity. It's already accounted for this month. So now we know we need to generate $24,000 in new patient revenue this month. Okay, cool. That seems a little bit easier, a little bit more manageable. And if we know that an average patient pays us, say, $2,000 in LTV, so their lifetime value working with us is $2,000, that means that we need 12 new patients this month to generate $24,000 in revenue. Because again, if each patient's coming in, they're paying $2,000, then 2,000 times 12 is 24,000 plus the 10K in continuity that we're invoicing. Easy. All right. Like perfect. Like 12 new patients. That seems pretty easy. I can do that. It's daunting to say like, man, I got to bring in 50 new evaluations this month. That makes it really, really hard. And that's even like, you can even take this a step further and you could say like, all right, if you know you need to generate 12 patients a month and you know that you convert 25% of your leads into new patients, that means you need to generate 48 leads this month, and you can just go and do that, and you can let your systems take care of the rest. So again, when I got a little bit further along in Ripple's journey, I just knew like, okay, I just need to generate 120 leads this month, and we're going to hit our top line revenue goal, because I knew our systems were in place. We obviously used HubSpot to track all of these things. We're able to create what's called an SLA, and I never worried about number of evaluations or new patients or anything like that. All I cared about was the number of leads we were generating, because I knew all of our sales systems in the back end were going to get us to where we want to be. So again, obviously our one thing for the quarter is finance, and then this first strategy is also finance. Hopefully you can see why like this is super important to plan out, because you want to know what you're doing each week and each month so that you can be proactive. Whereas like if you get to the end of the quarter and you've only invoiced 60K of that 100K goal, you're not playing defense and trying to make up that rest of that 40K. You can notice that you're off track a couple weeks, a couple months into the quarter, and try to course correct from there by the time the quarter ends. So it's really, really important to do. The second strategy is going to be leadership. Again, this is something that needs to be on your quarterly plan every single quarter. No questions asked. You always need to be improving this. In leadership, it's not like leads, right? Of like, once you hit your leads number, you can check that box and move on. It's like, all right, I know I need to generate 100 leads this month. I got my 100 leads. Now we don't need to worry about it anymore. Leadership needs to be worked on every single quarter, because you're never really done working on leadership. There's nobody that's an expert in leadership, I think, at least. I think everybody needs to continue working on it. And this is like talking about like, how do you actually implement a leadership strategy? This could be anything from, implementing something from EOS, or a book you read, or a podcast that you listen to. And, it could be about what you're going to be doing with your company culture, or creating team events, or, you're putting together team meetings, and what is the weekly cadence, and how many clinical education meetings are you doing, and how many one-on-one stand-ups are you doing? All those things need to be planned out, and putting those things in place makes you a good leader. I think the most important thing to remember with this is your business is never going to be good unless you as a human being are good. So you need to prioritize leadership and self-development if you actually want your business to grow. I look back 2021, and I was not a good person back then. I think I was super reactive, defensive. I didn't know a ton about myself. I was 29 years old, 28 years old. And, there's a lot of things going on, obviously. And running a business made me grow as a human being. I was forced to. I didn't have any choice, because, in the early years, I was not a good leader at Ripple, for sure, 100%. But I think when we got to our later stages, I think I became a better leader, for sure. But I also think that it was also relevant in my personal life as well. Like when I first started the business, I think in my personal life, I wasn't as good of a person to the people around me. And, in order for my business to grow, which was, one of my main goals, I had to be a better boyfriend, a better fiance, a better, son, brother, all of those things. And that's really what leadership is just self-development, being good with yourself. So again, you need to figure out like what goal you want to achieve in the leadership side of things in the next 3 months, and break it down on how you're going to accomplish that each month and then each week, because this is not something where you just snap your fingers and say like, okay, I read this book, I'm a good leader now. That is not how it works. You need to actually implement, and this stuff takes time for sure. That's why we always need to be working on it. It is the biggest lever that you have in your business, because if your staff members continue to churn and you can't keep anybody around and you can't hire anybody, there's usually a common denominator for that, and it's usually the business owner. And if they don't have a good culture and they're not a good leader, then people aren't going to stick around. And the clinics that are the most successful, that have 5, 6, 7, 8 staff members, they're awesome leaders. They're fun to be around. They're good people, and that is really what a good leader is. All right, for the third strategy, this is, going to be something that you need to come up with. It's going to be something that is going to be on the marketing side of things, or the systems or operations, or really anything along those lines. And depending on what you choose or what you think is going to move the business forward to hit that one thing goal, is going to allow for you to figure out what you need to do for the next 3 months. So for me personally, I loved marketing. This was always what I was planning, but I was, breaking it down into small chunks, right? So it's like my quarterly goal was to get our email automations live. Well, month 1, I learned everything possible about HubSpot on my own. And then month 2, I hired somebody, an industry expert, to teach me HubSpot. And in the third month, I actually built it out. Because if I went and, my quarterly goal was to implement these email automations, and I went directly to building it out, then I probably would have got super frustrated. I would have done things super wrong. It would have taken me way more time. Whereas like I had these actual step plans where it made it a lot easier to actually execute, and it gave me the proper amount of time. And I didn't get shiny odds syndrome at all, because I knew exactly what I needed to do. So maybe, for you, right, you need to think about what you want to do. Maybe you're looking to revamp your onboarding processes, or figure out clinical education schedule for the team, or how you're going to run meetings, or if you're going to set up an IRA program. To be honest, there's so much to do here. And that's why some parts of these, you just hire out. Like you hire out a marketing team, you hire out HR, you hire out ops person. Again, for me, I hated the ops side of things. So our policies and procedures, our handbooks, all of our SOPs, all of that stuff, I hired out for all of those, because that's just not something I wanted to do. And I wanted to spend all of my time on the marketing side. I wanted nothing to do with the clinical education side. And I just wanted to stay where my zone of genius was. And I think as a clinic owner, that's what you need to figure out. So these are the 3 strategies. Again, right? It's simple, but it's not easy. You need to start with figuring out what is the one thing, what is that one big goal that you want to accomplish this quarter? What is that financial top line goal? Based on what that one thing is, what are the 3 strategies that you're going to implement over the next 3 months in order to make that goal possible? And then based on each 3 of those strategies, you need to map out what you're going to do each month for each one of those strategies, which will then tell you what you're going to do each week, which will then tell you what you're going to do each day. And then you can figure it out by hour from there if you want to. That's how maniacal I get with my schedule. And if you do all of that stuff, your quarterly goal is going to happen. A lot of this is just math, just figuring it all out. Again, simple, not easy. But if you execute growing your clinic to whatever number you want to, it really is possible. So to wrap this up, what I thought would be fun is I actually have an old mastermind book that I did all of this mapping out with. And if you are watching on YouTube right now, which you should be, if you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be really leaning into YouTube. but I have my mastermind planner from 2021. This is, let me see what the month is. So this is October of 2021. So we're going into Q4, I guess. Yeah, October, November, December. So this would be Q4. This is our very first year in business. And it's very funny. I have all of these from all of the years. So maybe at one point I'll really break down all of the stages that I went through from going from, this one goal here is 120K. And then obviously, Ripple got to a much bigger number than that. And I can kind of take you guys through those strategies. But, this is how I rolled this out for myself in Q4 of 2021. So my one thing that I want to accomplish was $120,000 with 20% profit. So having that profit number there was really important. My 3 strategies, right? And again, like this is my first go at planning all this stuff. So a lot of the stuff I just talked about, I didn't actually do back then. So take all of this with a grain of salt. But my first strategy, right? So we've got the financial one. So I know I have here 50 paid PT sessions by somebody that's not me. So I thought that was funny. And then again, I broke it down into each month from there, right? It's like, okay, in order to hit that one strategy, I need to have 20 evaluations by November 31st. I need to have Casey, who's one of my staff members. She's got to do 105 sessions. And then Reggie, who is brand new at the time, she needs to have 28 paid sessions. And that's going to get me to that number that I wanted to. So, not too bad, to be totally honest with you. My strategy number 2, just, again, pretty broad here. I wouldn't suggest this. You want to make sure that your goals are SMART goals, right? So you actually can action on them. But I have here, become a better leader. So the first one is finish a book on leadership. Learn how to, what does this say here? I can't even read my own writing. Learn how the team wants to be managed, which is a pretty good insight. And then the third one is, become somebody that I myself would follow. So that's, again, more of a mindset thing there. Hopefully I actioned on that a little bit more than just that theory. I think this is kind of the time where I started to really leverage my mornings and deep work time and really get things done, because this is actually a super interesting point of business where I had 2 PTs mouths to feed. If I didn't figure out the marketing thing, then they probably would both leave at the time. We were able to figure it out, which is great. But very interesting to go back and see okay, what was my mindset back here? And obviously I'm, trying to be a really good leader and really ramp up the marketing side of things, which is, the third strategy here, improve my marketing metrics. So, I have here, set up our Google Ads sales funnel. So, 2021 is when the first Google Ads sales funnel for Ripple went live. So we've been doing that for a while, obviously. Set up 2 face-to-face meetings per month and then 2 workshops per month. It's, again, very funny to look back on this because I don't think we ever actually went through with the workshop side of things. I think it was more of just the personal meetings with our high leverage marketing contacts back then. But again, super simple. So you can see again, all right, here's what I want to do. Here's my one thing. Here are the 3 strategies that I want to implement. And then here's what I'm going to do each month in order to hit those 3 strategies. And to be honest, every single time that I did this, I hit these goals. And, I went above them most of the time. So again, make a plan. This stuff is simple, but it's not easy. But if you have this plan and you execute on the plan and you do what you say you're going to do, this stuff becomes very, very easy. Business becomes fun. So if you like this episode, subscribe to the podcast, and I'll talk to you guys soon.